Welcome to Forbidden Planet TV. I'm Andrew Sumner. I have a returning guest, one of our favourite guests, the one and only Fabian Nicieza. How are you, pal?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing, Andrew?
I am very well, thanks, mate, and all the better for being able to talk to you about one of our favourite projects at Titan Books, which is the second novel in your Suburban Dicks series, the brilliantly titled "The Self-Made Widow." So, available from the links attached to a conversation to
He's
pre-order right
pointing
here.
below, so the links
Right,
must be down below
the
there. Okay.
links are down below on YouTube.
Don't look there. Look
Whatever you do, don't look up. That's a mistake. But
Yeah,
here,
we learned that
yeah,
lesson
no,
with that
no one
movie,
wants
didn't
to
we?
look up there. It's like, that's it. You don't need any of that.
Look at
But
that pretty asteroid coming to crash on Earth.
exactly, exactly right. Don't get too fixated on the sky. It always ends badly. Um, so such a brilliant. I remember you when we were talking about ages ago about Suburban Dicks, the first book, which is wonderful. One of my genuinely one of my favourite novels from last year. It doesn't matter that it was Titan Books who published the UK edition. I absolutely loved it, mate. It was such a great
Thank
piece
you.
of work. Genuinely entertaining, so funny, and many other things as well. But for those who might want to pick up Suburban Dicks, which is also available for pre-order down here and not up there, down here, what can you tell the viewers about the world of Suburban Dicks and these amazing characters of yours?
The world is set as a series of sarcastic suburban mysteries, and the two main characters are should have been FBI profiler. In the first book, she's pregnant with her fifth child, and in the second book, she has her fifth child. um, so in the first book, she's carrying it around inside her belly all book long, and in the second book, she's carrying it around in her arm all day long. And her name is Andrea Stern, and she was supposed to go to Quantico, the FBI Academy. At a college, she had solved a major serial killer case in Manhattan while she was in college. But she became pregnant with her first child, and her life ended up getting derailed from what she thought it should be. So the first book is her getting involved in a local suburban murder in West Windsor, Plainsboro, New Jersey, which are sister towns near Princeton, New Jersey, which is where I happen to live, coincidentally, right what you know. And she teams up with a former Pulitzer Prize winning journalist who won the prize while he was just finishing college, the youngest person ever to win one, who 10 years later is working for a weekly local suburban newspaper. So, not to denigrate weekly local suburban newspapers, but his career trajectory didn't quite go the way he had planned. The two of them team up to solve a mystery of a gas station attendant, which could be the result of a cover up of a murder that happened many decades ago. So the whole idea was to uncover simmering, festering prejudices and quirks and foibles in suburban communities, especially ones like mine, which are subject to tremendous demographic change over the last 20, 30 years. The second book's a little more personal, same characters are involved, same setting, but one of Andrea's friends in the group, she calls the cellulitist or the cellulitis. She doesn't quite know how to pronounce it. She's from Queens, so she says the cellulitist. Um, the one of her friends, Molly, her husband passes away of a heart attack while he's sleeping. He's only 43 years old, and a lot of people knew he had a pre-existing heart condition, but Andrea wasn't one of them, which shows you that she's not as close to her friend group as her friends are to each other. And Andie starts to suspect that Molly may have killed her husband. She does this with absolutely zero evidence because the medical examiner says heart attack, and the family says heart attack. And Kenny Lee, the reporter, at the same time gets a muffled phone call from someone trying way too hard to impersonate Charlie Brown's teacher, saying that Derek Good didn't die of natural causes. Molly killed him. So he is percolating too. Now, Kenny's life has really had quite a turnaround. He's working in Manhattan with a production company that's working on the Netflix documentary of the Suburban Dicks novel. He wrote a nonfiction book called Suburban Secrets, which was about what happened in the course of Suburban Dicks, the fiction novel, and Netflix has picked it up as a documentary. So he is working with the production team in Manhattan on finalizing and doing the final editing work and final interviewing things that need to be done for the documentary. But as is Kenny's wont, it's never good enough. Nothing is ever enough. The plate is never full. So he wants to start sniffing around this Derek Good quote unquote murder. So the whole investigation starts to take a track that could conceivably really seriously damage not only Andrea's friend group, but seriously damage her own marriage, her own family. And she has to make choices as to what matters more to her: justice and capturing a potential criminal, or kind of the timid, bland, repetitive structure of her entire suburban existence.
Yeah, well, man, well said. I could sit and listen to you describe your books for hours, mate. Do you know what I mean? It's just as entertaining as reading them.
I really want to like have people read them instead of me describing them. But if necessary, I will go to each individual reader's house and describe the book to them, as long as it means they've also purchased the book.
Something I think when I read your novels is that, of course, something you and I have talked about in the past and talked about on the show in the past is your long career with Marvel in various guises, primarily as a writer across many properties that are very, 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 very well known to people who are the comics faithful: Thunderbolt, Deadpool, Captain Marvel. Sunset Rider's my favorite. Lots of them, but which I'm going to try.
X-Men, X-Force.
Yeah, right on. All that
everything.
great stuff. But it seems to me that one of the great benefits of writing your own novel series is it's kind of capturing your voice and your humor in a kind of pure and undiluted way, where you don't have to think about these characters that essentially belong to other people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes, and having finished the two books and having talked about the two books, I look back at them now, because even Self-Made Widow I wrote in 2020.
Yeah.
I wrote that first the manuscript draft at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. So for me, it really is rearview mirror looking back, and it is for better or worse more me than anything else I've done in 35 years as a writer. There's always little bits of me in things I do, but like you said, this is undiluted. So, and again, I always say for better or worse, because your mileage may vary depending on your opinion of the work. It is certainly a better expression both of my point of view, the way I see things, the world I live in, because I actually live in the towns I write about, and have for 30 years in this general area. So yeah, I am writing observationally about stuff I hear, see, do almost every single day in one capacity or another. If I complain about a pothole on a road, it's because I drove over that pothole in a road. So I feel that I feel that that's very enjoyable and entertaining. That being said, some of the stuff I've just been percolating in the last year is not this. It's not set in a suburban New Jersey town, and I'm finding the ability to express myself through prose really satisfying, really enjoyable. And now that I'm doing stuff that isn't the world outside my window, to coin a phrase, I'm really feeling much more confident and comfortable in the entire format. I mean, my writing process for Suburban Dicks, as we discussed in our last interview, was an odd one. 25 years in my brain, a year and a half for first draft of a manuscript, another year to cut it, trim it, another few months to do more cutting and trimming once it got to the point where an agency was going to represent it, more cutting and trimming after a publisher decided to buy it. That was like a 2-year plus kind of a journey, Self-Made Widow, I wrote from March to November of 2020. And I had some cuts that I had to make, but knowing what I had to do now so much better, I planned for those cuts in the manuscript that I submitted. So I knew that my editor, Mark Tavani, who, by the way, I want to credit because he's the one who came up with the title that you like so much. He came up with Self-Made Widow. I knew Mark didn't like the flashbacks in my outline, so I wrote pretty hefty flashbacks on purpose, knowing that if I had a cut, I was going to be able to get 10 to 15 pages out of just the flashbacks alone. The flashbacks you see in the book now are a fifth of what they were in terms of their length. I went into it a little bit more because I flashbacked a few times to Kenny and Andrea's youth and early adulthood because I wanted to reflect what their families were like, what their suburban marriages were like, because the theme of the book is all about the stultifying of life in the suburbs. Sounds so positive. It really is. It really isn't negative though. It sounds really negative, but it's not. It's bouncy, snarky fun. So I wanted the reader to know a little bit more about what Kenny and Andrea's upbringings were like, so that they could get a better perspective of where they were now as adults in their place, regarding and better reflecting the themes of the story. Otherwise, then Andie and Kenny are just observational snark, and I wanted the reader to become a little more vested in them emotionally for what they themselves went through, which would color how they see relationships and things today.
Yeah, I think, Fabian, that's like a dance on a knife edge that you really pull off really well. And obviously, you've always been good with snark, hence, all your great like Deadpool
I
stories.
think I got a new epitaph for my tombstone. Thank you. He always was good with snark. That's the perfect thing to put on my tombstone, isn't it? I guess the joke's on me. Let's see me be snarky now.
Well, it's so true, I mean, the voice of Deadpool is such a key thing of who that character is and has gone on to be. And you essentially are the original voice of Deadpool. So that's such a big thing. But to actually be able to use that superpower, if you will, on your own terms, about with your own characters, I think that's what's really so wonderfully satisfying about these two books. It's the voice that you give the characters.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I can reflect now. I look back. I'm satisfied. I'm okay. That doesn't happen too much for me as a writer. I'm satisfied with the two books. I like them. I think they're pretty good. I think they're each distinct, although they're also part of a whole. If I had the opportunity to turn this into an ongoing series, one of my real attempts, which I think I manifested in the second book, is that it's not the same thing, but it is the same thing. I read too many books and series where they completely become interchangeable. You don't
Sure.
remember the events from one for the other. I want each book to have a theme underlying whatever the story is, whatever the murder plot is. I want there to be an underlying theme to it, because then that's where I can get to express views and have discussions about a subject, about something, you know.
Yeah.
And I like that, because I do think the two books are distinct, but I think that you can read each of them separately, and still get something out of it, I hope, because we tried really really hard with the second book to do that. Or you can read them as a whole and get a feeling that there's a lot going on in this world, rather than kind of a repetitious cycle, procedural style, murder solve,
Yeah.
um and also there would be drastic growth and change for the characters. I ended the first book with kind of a fun status quo change for Andrea. I end the second book with an even bigger status quo change for Andrea, which I really like. So I hope one day I get to write a third book, and a fourth book and a fifth book, because then you'll get to see these characters grow and change.
Mate, I'm really sure that you will. And on that kind of alluding to that narrative bombshell, I think this is a great point for us to close out. And everybody watching this conversation between myself and Fabian, Again, you can go to the links attached here and you can pick up Suburban Dicks and order The Self-Made Widow from forbiddenplanet.com. And Fabian, it's always such a pleasure to see you, mate. Congratulations on this duology thus far. It's a really satisfying read, mate.
I appreciate it very much, Andy. Thank you. It was always a pleasure to talk to you.
Take care, brother. See you soon. Bye-bye. If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.